tried to hold us back, to hold us, tried to hold us back.
We will be here forever. Do you understand?
Hey, it's Shan here. This week I catch up with the founder of one of the longest consecutively running skateboard brands in Australia. It is Chris Yeoh. He is the man behind Amnesia Skateboards. Chris and I sit down in the Paint Studio communal art space, which was created by former XEN skateboarder Nick Collison. It's also a space that Steve Tierney operates out of, which is quite fitting because Steve sits in this week as guest co-host. And Steve has been designing graphics for Amnesia Skateboards for about 20 years. So between the two of them and myself, we had a lot to talk about. Chris takes us on a journey through his life so far, and we talk about his personal life and his journey there, but we also go deep on the roots and the origins of Amnesia Skateboards. We talk about the skaters that have ridden for the brand over the years. We talk about the artists that have created and designed graphics for the brand over the years. So it's a real history lesson. Hope you enjoy it. If you're someone that enjoys the audio version of Terrible Happy Talks, I've now linked those to the Terrible Happy Talks YouTube channel as well as the video productions. So YouTube's kind of become a one-stop shop for the show where you can watch the video productions, and we're doing those in a studio now, and also the audio-only version. So it's the whole back catalogue's on there. Get on. I could use your support actually, so go and subscribe on YouTube. But you can still find the podcast on all the platforms and the ones that you like to listen on as well. And I hope you enjoy this week's episode as much as I did. Chris is just a good human. He's got a good heart. He's got a good soul. So sit back, relax, and get to know Mr. Chris Yeoh.
Stars of the neon belong to a culture destined to rock for eons. Time doesn't exist. Shut those cataracts, capture the virtualist. Now, let's get back to what makes things seem forever, whether it's unseen, unheard, or it's 16 again. Not a bother. Fill this old man with a killer floor that gives all.
But these mics are on every podcast you see, right?
Actually, you know what? Check one. I was turning my headphones down.
Yeah.
Now, let's go. Check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, maybe a tiny bit more. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. You got me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So I'm good?
Dude, you're good.
Okay.
Mr. Chris Yeoh. Dude, I never use that shit. So good, though. Chris, man, I'm so stoked to have you on the show.
Good to be here.
In Steve and Nick Collison's art studio.
Yeah.
Such a nice space.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Good spot to do this.
What are you working on at the moment, Steve, in here?
Lots of stuff, actually. And, yeah, I've got a couple of exhibitions, this stuff coming up, which is exciting, being back in Sydney. But I'm working on these giant collages that kind of came out of, funnily enough, some work I did for Chris last year.
Interesting.
Yeah, I did a series of collages that are going to be on some boards coming out soonish, taking a while. But I've blown them up really big, like 2.5 meters by 1.5 meters or something, like a full plywood sheet. And
so they were graphics.
Scanned in. They were collages that I made, and then I scanned them in. We printed the boards, and I already had the idea in mind anyway. But I had the scans high res, and then blew them up big and printed them out big and remade the collages large scale.
Nice. So when's it on?
I've got an open studio here where we are on the 27th of July.
In Marrickville, Sydney?
Yeah. Saturday afternoon thing.
Nice.
Yeah, and all the artists that are in the studio are going to show work, so it'll be cool.
Do you need a DJ for the event?
We might actually, yeah.
I know a guy. How important is art to you as a long-time skate company owner? Chris?
It's everything. Like, just think, like, remember when blanks were really popular? Like, it was just soulless, you know? Like, I think all the pros were using blanks because it was the companies were trying to save money in the 90s. And, it was, you know, you'd look in the mags and everyone's writing blanks. And then all the kids started buying blanks, right? Because they wanted to be cool. And it was just like, you know, everyone's writing the same thing. I think artwork's really important in terms of, you know, differentiation of what your brand's all about. And, you know, we've been working with Steve, I think, since 2006 was probably the first graphic he did for us. And we've worked with a lot of different artists over the years, but Steve's been the most prominent one. One, because we've just known each other through skating for a long time. I remember coming to Sydney to film Steve, because the original idea for the first Amnesia video was to have an Omni section. And Kerry Pogson gave me a list of all the people, and I came down and met Steve, and I should grab that footage actually.
Totally, man. I'd love to see that footage.
Yeah, it was like, it would have been 94 or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was it was a good time back then, you know.
Why exactly?
I don't know. I guess I was young, and like that Omni section didn't pan out for many different reasons. Like Amnesia was such a low budget thing. We had really big ideas, but you know, Kerry Pogson from Omni was really helpful at the start. I guess when I first started making boards, I wrote a letter to him back in the day before email and stuff.
So good, so old school.
And Kerry wrote me back, and I think I could afford 8 blanks for my first order. And I said to him I wanted them to be raw, but what I meant was like just the veneer. But he sent me like 8 raw blanks that were unsanded.
Unsanded, leaving the edges, like straight edge? Or like,
no,
like
just raw.
Right.
Like I had to sand those by hand, and it was just like,
right.
This is a nightmare. Yeah. But yeah, Kerry Pogson, like such a legend, like he could have just ignored my letter. I don't think many people were getting like their brands made through Omni, and not long after that, Time started up, and then a lot of other companies, Criminal and that, started using Omni as well. So, yeah, shout out to Kerry Pogson. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, between you and him, it's got to be the longest running skate brands in Australia, right? Mm-hmm. Like consistently.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Are you claiming it?
No, I know there's been a few years where we've had hiatuses. Like I lived in London for a couple of years, but I think in terms of an anniversary, you know, we started 30 years ago this year. So yeah,
congrats, that's big.
Congratulations, man.
Thanks.
Would you say at this stage in the game, does it feel like your legacy?
Yeah, look, I don't know. Like I've always looked at as Amnesia as like a passion project, and it's, you know, there's been times where I've sort of thought about sort of chucking it in, but it's always been that creative outlet on the side. Like in my day job, it's very much logical and systems and very much left brain, and I just see Amnesia as something as just making things and just putting it out there. Working with skaters and just trying to create something. And, you know, I've been lucky enough just to meet some really rad people over the years and form friendships and, you know, make videos and work with artists and work with many different, you know, manufacturers over the years as well. So it's been an enjoyable process. So it's more a labour of love. It's not really a profit motive or anything like that. Yeah.
At any stage in the game, did you ever have those big dreams?
I think so. When I was younger, but I don't think it was realistic. Like the skateboard industry in Australia is very fickle. And I think back then, maybe in the 90s, it was hard to really get boards made. Compared to now, like every shop is a brand. There's lots of brands coming up, which I think is awesome, right? But it also means there's like a oversupply of boards, so it's a bit of a difficult market if you want to sort of make a living out of it. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Like don't give up your day job?
Yeah, pretty much. But I think for me, and this isn't a cop out, like I kind of like that. I think if it was my day job, it'd probably take the fun out of it, you know?
Yeah.
So I've kind of sort of over the years accepted the fact that, you know, I'm not going to be, you know, Steve Rocco or someone like that. I can sell a company and move to Hawaii. But you know, it's just something that I enjoy doing, and I've got to meet, you know, a lot of cool people along the way. Yeah,
yeah, man. Well, the thing, I mean, as an artist myself, and obviously, like you said, we've worked closely together over many years. But the thing that I do think that stands out with Amnesia and I like about Amnesia is that even though you had your brand, like you've got the logo, the hand thing, and you've done logo boards, and I've even helped design logo boards for you.
Yep.
But you've probably done artwork boards more consistently than a lot of people where you just do a series. Like did you do series with like Brad Eastman and Marty Baptist and people like that as well, right?
Yep.
And because a lot of companies, Mahoon obviously, had a strong brand aesthetic.
Yeah.
Time did as well. And but I feel like you've worked with artists, like you said, like.
Yeah. And I think that's like when we make boards, maybe not the last lot of boards we made, which were heavily logo based, and a lot of that's probably from Ben Cox, like in the original Amnesia team, like he did a lot of creative input into what we made. And some things I didn't really understand what he wanted to do. They were really obscure. Like he did this one that was like a Rorschach sort of, it was just a whiteboard with black smudges on it. And he was like, and it was all charcoal sort of rubbings and stuff. And we got Omni to make that, and it sold really well. But there was no Amnesia written on it. There was no logo, nothing. So Ben was really a big inspiration. Like he was a bit of a contrarian in that sense, and he like just such a original thinker and skater. But that's probably a bit of influence from him as well. And then later on, I ended up working at Avant-Garde Postcards, and that's where I met my wife. And they always did those free postcards, and all the ones that got picked up weren't the ones that were the corporate ones, like Lipton's iced tea printed all over it. It was the artist cards that were like really, from the artist's sort of self-expression,
Well, you actually hooked me up with doing a series of them as well, right? Or was it Hunmi when she was working there as well?
I think it was maybe Hunmi, and then I helped Marty get one as well, because they always did like every 2 weeks they did 2 artist cards.
That was awesome. Yeah.
How random. How'd that job come about at a postcard place?
I was living in London, and then my brother was sick with cancer, and my mum called me and said, things are getting bad. So I had to come back to Sydney, and I just looked in the Sydney Morning Herald and found that job, and I went, and my wife was on the reception. She was like, just started working there, and then I ended up getting the job there, and one thing led to another.
Nice. Amazing, dude. So what's your day job now?
I work in the software industry, so I look after their internal systems and processes. So it's very much, left brain activity, logic systems, everything's black and white. There's no room for sort of anything to go wrong in that sense. So that's why I'm saying, like, when I do stuff that's more right brain, or, I think there's still stuff you need to work in a skate company that's operational, but then the stuff I enjoy is like the art, the skaters, the filming, the creative side of it.
Yeah, dude.
Right, yeah.
It's just such a polar opposite,
Oh, totally.
Do you find it balances you out then?
Yeah, definitely. If I had to work 7 days a week doing my day job, I'd just, I'd go nuts. Yeah. I'm not saying I don't enjoy it. I love my job. But yeah, I do think you need a healthy balance.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Wow, man, 30 years, hey? It's so insane, dude. It's so, I don't know, like Steve said, like there's no other company that's been able to sort of sustain it. But in terms of like the financials, I mean, has it cost you financially on a personal level?
No, it pretty much pays for itself, but there have been some times where things have gone wrong. So like there was a wood shop in Canada that sent me like a batch of boards that were drilled off center. There was a batch of boards that came from China where with the Asian wood shops, you've got to be very specific in your instructions. And I wrote like 30, as in 30 quantity, times, 8.0, 30 times 8.125, etc. But they thought I meant 30 inches long.
Right, so it all came back short.
Yeah, so all the boards came back short. But we actually turned that into a good thing. So that's when we did the Cross the Board, the art show. So we just had these 100 boards that were not rideable. And we just thought, okay, this was a couple of years after I lost my brother to cancer. And I was like, let's try and do something good about this. let's do an art show. We get 100 boards, 100 different artists, and raise some money for the Cancer Council. So that was,
dude.
and we got like, I wrote to Chad Musker. He was like, yeah, I'm doing one for sure. He did like this ghetto blaster. I think, Steve, were you involved in that?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Marty Baptist, Ken Doan, Ricky Swallow, Anthony Lister, Dustin Dolan did one.
Dustin.
Pat Noho. Like everyone, the thing is, when you talk to people about cancer, it's such a wide impacting condition, you know, like everyone's been touched by it. When you tell them you're doing it for that, everyone was all in. Plus it was such a rad concept, right? You get a blank board and you put your own sort of expression on it, and then they all get exhibited, which was great. Yeah.
For sure. Ken Doan.
Yeah. Ken Doan did one.
How did you score that guy?
We just contacted them, you know. That's what I mean. You just say you're doing it for the Cancer Council, and people were just like more than willing to help. Nardis did one, but it didn't get there until after the show, but we auctioned it off on eBay, and that was through Dean Wells. So Dean Wells was working at Quicksilver, and Dean Wells is a good friend of mine going way back to high school days. And yeah, it was a shame we didn't have that one for the art show, but then it arrived and it was this big charcoal. The board had been charcoaled, and then it just said thank you on top of it, which was rad. Yeah.
How old were you when your brother passed?
I was, what was that, 2005? Late, I was nearly 30, late 20s,
Wow. It's a wild experience, that one, right? And like you said, it touches so many people. I mean, my family's been touched by cancer as well.
Yeah.
Did your family, I guess, would you like to share about how your family came together to support one another through that?
Yeah, it was kind of weird. Like, I was born in England and I moved to Australia when I was 11. My parents actually were going to move to Melbourne when I was 2, but my grandmother got so upset they just canned the idea, had a couple more kids, and then we moved here in 86. I was the eldest. And we moved to Stockton, right? We were from the Midlands, right in the middle of England in Northampton. And I actually went to school 2 blocks away where Radlands was, but that was like 2 years after I left, or a couple of years after I left. So my background, like my dad's Chinese, my mum's English. And then we moved to Australia from the Midlands. Like it was a full culture shock.
Wow.
But in terms of how we supported each other, my parents broke up when I was in year 12. So they hadn't talked to each other for a long time. So, you know, it was hard. When my brother actually died, we were all in the room, and my parents were there and they'd never talked to each other. And then when he took his last breath and passed away, they just like embraced each other, and I was like tripping out, man, because I was like, they haven't talked to each other for like 10 years or something. And my sister
I'm tearing up listening to this.
Yeah, it was, it's tough, you know, because my brother, you know, I was banned from skating when I was younger because I broke my arm so many times. Like the last one was like, I smashed my elbow at Stockton mini ramp, the half pipe there. And the surgeon said to my mum, you know, don't let him skate. So I was banned. But I just wanted to be around skateboarding. So I could push my brother, you know, he was 4 years younger. And he fully got into it, but he wasn't totally, you know, it wasn't in his heart, you know, he was more a car guy. But, you know, that's sort of how I kept in skating, and then, you know, got into taking photos and stuff like that. But, you know, my brother, I don't think I'd be doing Amnesia now if it wasn't for my brother, because when I came back from London, he was dying. And my brother wasn't backwards and coming forwards. Like he was like, I'm more laid back and like more introvert. He's like, he was a panel beater and he was like fully more Newcastle than me. He goes, what the fuck are you doing? How come you're not doing Amnesia? And, you know, you love that. Like, why aren't you fucking doing it? And I was like, what? And he's dying, man. Like he knew he was dying, like probably had like a month to go. And it just made me think, you know, oh shit, like, yeah, okay, I'm going to give it another go. Because I had a sort of break there for a couple of years.
I wonder if, like, in his last days, his perspective would be so much different to ours. And you start to identify what's real in this life. And maybe that's why you think
Totally.
it's like it's a real thing. Like it's passion. It's what this life's about, isn't it? I don't know.
I think you're right. Like, you know, it's not, you know, it's not my job, but it's something in my life that, you know, I love. And, you know, it's the things, you know, when you're on your deathbed, you're probably thinking about those things in your life that have really moved you, you know? So I think that's one of the things. Yeah.
Oh, man. It's really epic. Yeah, I want to clarify for listeners, though, that we're talking about Newcastle, Australia, which is in New South Wales, because, you know, there's people in various parts of the world that listen, just to clarify. And you said you lived in an area called Stockton, which is a suburb of the city of Newcastle.
Yeah.
Can you describe, like, your childhood in an area like that?
Well, like I said, we came from the Midlands in England and we moved to a place that was 2 blocks from the beach. So I remember my sister said to my dad after a few months, like, are we still on holiday? And, yeah, it was a culture shock. Like, it was like going to the beach and just great weather, skateboarding, you know, that late, you know, 86, late 80s. Big sort of boom in skating around 88. Like, you know, even people you wouldn't have thought of were buying boards at your high school. It was kind of strange.
So that's where you started skating? Or did you start in England?
No, well, I saw one guy riding a skateboard that was like an 80s sort of wider board in England, but that was just like once, like a fleeting thing, someone going past my house. And then in, I think about in 87, that's when I started seeing people skate. And then towards the end of year 7, I met like my best mate ever through high school. Like, he was mixed race. His mum was Malaysian. His dad was Australian. We were kind of like brothers. Everyone thought we were brothers. And he was like into skating. He had a Vision Psycho stick. He was like into records, got me into all the music that I like all the hip hop around that time, and got me into skating as well. So I hadn't really had a really good friend until I met Kelvin, rest in peace. He's passed now, but he was a big influence on me and just steered me the right way. I think I had an AP Night Raider skateboard when I met him, and then he was like, no, you got to get, you know, something better than that.
A Psycho stick.
Yeah, I didn't get a Psycho stick. I think I got a Rob Roscoe. Yeah.
Is that your first ever board?
It wasn't the first ever. Well, besides the Night Raider, I think the Roscoe,
first
was
proper board.
Proper board, yeah. Like,
what was your
US
first
board.
proper board, Steve?
Tommy Guerrero, which is hanging up in my studio.
That's right, yeah. Tommy Guerrero was my second ever board. My first one was Lance Mountain. Yeah. Crazy. Yeah, like what? Okay, like let's get this out of the way. Like, what drew you to skateboarding originally? Like, you just like the look of it, or was it a friend? I don't know.
I'm going to say a really cliche thing, but I did see Back to the Future, like, and I saw that and I was like, wow, that's sick. Like,
Everyone.
And then in high school, in that year 7, there was a maths teacher that let some of the kids use the VCR on one of the maths rooms in Newcastle High at lunchtime. And then I went there and someone bought Future Primitive and then Search for Animal Chin. So that's where I first saw my skate videos. And then I think the video that really like knocked me for a 6 was Public Domain. Like, we didn't have skate shops back then. We had Pacific Dreams, which was a surf shop, and Ray Richards, which was Mark Richards' dad's shop. And the owner of Pacific Dreams, his daughter was in my year at school, and I'd go there and she goes, oh, we got this new video, and put it on, and I just saw Ray Barbie, Steve Sires, Eric Sanderson, Chet
When
Thomas.
they're cruising down the street?
Oh, man, I remember like standing there.
Oh, that black and white part,
The black and white part,
unbelievable. Yeah.
And Chriselle, who was the daughter of the owner, just grabbed it and she goes, just take the video. And I go, no. And like, she gave it to me, like the brand new Public Domain, and I had to pay it back over time. Like, I couldn't afford it. That was rad. Yeah. I think my family got sick of me watching skate videos, you know, before school every day, you know.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I remember in that one part, Ray Barbie does a backside 360 no comply.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, it blew my mind.
No complies.
The no comply
Gazelles.
stuff he does,
Yeah.
it's still to this day insane.
So
Yeah.
smooth.
And there were some of the biggest handrails in that part back then, right? Like,
Was there?
Yeah, there were some handrail parts. Yeah.
Amazing, dude. So were you a good student at school?
I was, if I respected the teacher. So in year 7, I came first in science in the half yearly and yearly, but I didn't do any homework, but I just really respected the teacher. In year 8, I came second last in science because I just didn't respect the teacher. So for me, and that's always been the case, it's probably been of a downfall for me in school because you're not going to get on with every teacher, right? You just got to, get the work done. But for me, it was just like, if I didn't like the teacher, I was just like, had no time for it and I didn't put in the effort, which is,
Were you a good student at school, Steve?
I was pretty good, yeah. But I was definitely.
You're such
But I just kept to myself and just did the work, I wasn't really highly smart or anything, killing it.
But you're diligent.
I diligent and knew I was there for a purpose to get
You are actually
things done.
You're one of the most diligent people I know. I was saying it to him on the phone today. He's like got such a can-do attitude.
But I was also at the time like skating in high school but skating with people that weren't going to my high school. So I would just go to school, had friends, but not like I wouldn't hang out with them after school. So I'd just go to school, do my school stuff, and then go skate or go see my real friends or whatever. I had real friends at school for sure, but it wasn't like school life wasn't my life. I just knew I had to do it and get it done and get on with life.
Did your parents push you academically?
Not really. Like my dad's like the black sheep of the family. So he's lived a third of his life in Asia, a third in the UK, and probably a third, maybe a bit more now in Australia. So it's pretty much like laid back. I think by the time I got to high school, my mum was more focused on my brother and sister. So I was sort of left to my own devices. But I was, I was pretty good at maths and science and that sort of thing. Yeah.
What was things like at home?
A bit unstable sometimes. Like my parents' marriage got pretty bad towards probably when I was in high school towards the end, and they finally separated when I was in year 12. So it wasn't the best environment, but love my parents today, they're rad. So I think it just wasn't right for them. My mum was 19 when she had me, my dad was 27, 2 totally different cultures. It is what it is.
It is what it is. How did you two meet anyway?
I mean, just skating, just like you said, probably like you said, when you came to Sydney to film.
When I got that list from Kerry. Yeah, I think it was you, Alex Smith, Stephen Justice. He gave me like all these names and numbers. Jake Brown.
It's so funny that stuff back in the day, because I remember when I was writing for Omni and Steve Justice was on the team. Yeah. And he was living in Melbourne, and we were all going to Melbourne, like me and Davo and a couple of guys. I didn't know him at all. Yeah. And Kerry Pogson gave me his phone number, called him up. Yeah. He's living at home with his mum and his family. And I'm like, hey, we're coming to Melbourne. Can we crash at your house? And he's like, yeah. 3 dudes rock up at his family's house. We stayed for like 2 weeks in Melbourne. Like, imagine that.
Yeah. Pre-internet, right?
Yeah, I didn't even know him. It was just because we rode for the same team. And he turned out to be a legend, and we're still friends. But like, crazy.
Different.
He sent me some footage actually that Greg Stewart filmed. And on the hi-8 tape was the Flow Dog video.
Oh, yeah.
So we actually got that. Me and Ben and everyone in Newcastle, like in our small clique, were like watching that and just blown away. So it was kind of a lucky thing that, he sent us that tape.
That Melbourne footage, when that came out, it blew everyone away. Yeah. We were in Sydney thinking we were killing it, and we were just like, oh my God, Ryan Dennery's is like insane.
Ryan,
Like, but how did you meet Ben Cox? Like,
good question.
So when I couldn't skate and I was banned, my brother was skating, and there was a half pipe spine into a bowl at Caves Beach. It was in this squash court, and it took us. We used to get the ferry from Stockton and like a 50-minute bus ride to Caves Beach near Swansea. And we went one day, and Ben was just out the front skating the curb. And for anyone who knows Ben, when you meet Ben, it's like you've been best friends forever, and he's just got this mad charisma and energy. And it was like, he goes, "You want to skate the curb?" And I had my arm, I had this like thermoskin on there. I wasn't supposed to skate, but I was like, yeah, we skated the curb. And then I think he ended up moving into Cooks Hill, and that's when we started hanging out a lot. And then when I got into photography and filming and doing I did a little T-shirt company and stuff. And then when I ended up doing the zine, Ben was always around, and he was such a natural talent that it was just, he was always keen to go shoot photos and go skate. So
the zine was first, and the zine was called Amnesia, correct?
Yeah, the zine was called Amnesia, and it was just an outlet for me. Like I was printing black and white photos in high school, and I was always a mad magazine geek. Like I really identify with Jim Turvey. Like I had all the mags, Skating Life, Skateboard Australia, 540 back then, and then the thick trans worlds from back then with Great Britain's photos and Sturt and all those photographers. And Amnesia was just my idea of just creating a magazine that was just local. Me, a guy called Brett Everhard started it, and he was doing the writing and the interviews, and I was doing the photography. Yeah, and I bought this electric typewriter. This was pre-desktop publishing, so it was all cut and paste. So electric typewriter, you need a liquid paper if you made a mistake, and you're cutting
With scissors.
Yeah, with scissors.
Just cut the whole article out, the whole paragraph out.
Yeah, pretty much, and then lay it out, and then photocopy it down at the local Konica. It was a Konica sales center. It wasn't even supposed to be for consumers to go in there. And I went in there like just this, 18 or 17. I don't know how old I was. And I go, I just want to do these photocopies. They go, yeah. And they just gave me some money. But then I ended up getting picked up by the Arts Council, and they gave me access to dark rooms and free photocopying stuff like that.
It's almost like a collage, Steve.
That's collage, but that's the original zine vibe. There's people today trying to emulate that. Like it's kind of come full circle.
But electronically.
Yeah, kind of. Well, there's probably people still trying to do it, like going back to that old school, because that 90s thing now is so in fashion as well.
Yeah.
But I know people doing that.
Like having something physical to hold.
Billy Harris is kind of doing it.
Yeah, totally right.
Like,
yeah.
He's brought back the real authentic
I'm sure he's doing exactly that.
OG vibe of it, yeah. So sick. How'd the name Amnesia come about?
It was from, I don't think anyone knows this even on the team. It was from these like tapes. Yes. So when me and Kelvin, my friend, we were working at Woolies in Mayfield, and there was this girl in the deli, and she was giving us these rave tapes from the UK. And there was this guy, like there was this crew called Amnesia House. They're from Coventry in the Midlands, actually, where my mum was born. And we'd listen to these tapes, and there's this guy, probably off his head on ease or something, going, Amnesia. And that's just, like, I just always liked that name. Not that Amnesia was related to, like, the rave scene or anything, but we just always loved the name. And I always like to think about it like Amnesia. It's sort of like if you're skating or in the mode, you forget about all your worries. So it's like that sort of concept.
Yeah.
I knew there was going to be some depth there.
Yeah.
I was hoping you wouldn't forget. Shit, sorry. I fucking couldn't help saying that dad joke right there. Damn it. Yeah, like shout out to No Negative magazine, Billy Harris.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that Billy? Is it?
It's
Harris,
Billy.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But yeah, from what I've seen, it's like really well laid out, like original zines. And Jim Turvey, I went skating with Jim Turvey the other night.
Oh, cool.
He's a skate nerd.
He was just a kid. Like, I didn't even know his name was Jin until, like, probably 5-10 years. Like, recent, as, it was always Barney, it was just Barney at the skate park, and he was always that little kid, like, asking questions and stuff like that.
How'd you meet him? Like, at the skate
park? Just at South Newcastle Beach skate park. That was sort of, like, before that, everyone was at admin, where it's a 5-star hotel now. And that was sort of our E&B in Newcastle, and that's before there was any sort of parks. And then when South Newcastle was built, that's sort of where we hung out.
Yeah, so I'm new to the Newcastle area.
Yeah.
And the one thing that really stands out is how strong that skate scene is.
Yeah.
And obviously I've been aware of the skate scene up there for forever, but living there you see how deep the roots are. Why do you think that area has such a strong scene? Like, what's going on up there?
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot of grassroots organisation, and there's always been a strong community. Like, even before my generation, you got the older guys like John Bogarts, Anthony Simmons, Shane Ayers, those guys. There's always like a crew of skaters that there's always sort of a hardness to skating back then, but if you're willing to come and give it a go, they're supportive. And we had the Newcastle and Lake Macquarie Skateboard Association, so they would have like these meetings, and you'd go and have pizza, and they'd talk about how can we get skate parks and stuff like that. So I think that's a big part of it. But even now, like I see, the skaters coming out of Newcastle, it's just, Connor Reeve and Sean Ryan and Rowan and those guys. It's just, I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that.
Yeah, I've asked a few people, and everyone's got a different perspective and view on it, I guess.
Yeah.
But also, it doesn't really have the abundance of mega skate parks like Sydney does. But still, everyone's just like pushing so hard.
Yeah.
But some of those street skater guys, like you mentioned, Connor and Rowan and a bunch of other guys, they've just shut that whole city down, man. There's not a spot that hasn't been completely, destroyed by those guys.
That new Balance video.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
See Connor Reeves' backside nose blunt slide?
Yeah. And that frontside blunt slide on the... Yeah, it's good to see some of those Newcastle spots because she's like, I never thought anyone would skate. Like there's that curve rail that goes around that Rowan skate. It's like,
now.
We used to look at that like, as if,
Yeah.
and now you just see them skating it like it's standard. It's like, what?
Yeah. And the rail, I think, was at the blunt slide. It's on an angle. It's in a residential area.
Yeah, up on the hill.
But on the hill, have you looked at it?
No. I know that street.
The video doesn't do it justice on how gnarly it is. Like, it's so steep, the landing, and fast and narrow, and it's just like, wow. And Rowan did something crazy on it too recently. I can't remember. But, yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah. Next level.
You sponsored Connor Reeve for a while, yeah?
Yeah, we did, yeah. So, like, probably for a couple of years, 2020 maybe for a couple of years, yeah.
Nice. Like, did you just identify him as...
No, it was through a rider at the time, Simon Lydiard, that we rode for us for a while, and he just said, I think I just asked him any, new up-and-comers, and he, said Connor, so we just started flowing him boards,
Yeah, nice. Sick.
Yeah, it's good to be part of different people's journeys at times, yeah.
It is, huh?
Yeah.
But I was just, like, leading into, like, do you think you've got an eye for talent now?
No, I don't know. It's usually the other team riders. Like it's
Okay.
I rely on people like Caney and stuff like that. They've got. I think they've got a better eye, but maybe I don't know.
Because you're not trying to be Steve Rocco, right?
No.
I love that you brought that up. Hey, did you guys watch the Jenkem article?
Definitely, yeah.
What do you think of it, Steve?
It was good, yeah. I mean, it's great that he engaged and like answered questions. Yeah, I was really interested in He's just saying he's just bought property in New Zealand, which I reckon he's part of the billionaire underground club, all those billionaires that are buying land in New Zealand and building the bunker people.
I didn't know that.
It's a huge thing. And it's kind of a conceptual idea. No one knows for sure what's happening. But
can you blame him?
I'm sure if anyone's doing it, he would be doing it.
I thought he sounded...
But it was great.
Yeah, and I thought he seemed like pretty down to earth.
Yeah, and the interviews were cool. It was like really cool. There was a few things I can't remember. Yeah, specifics. That's the Greek wedding next door.
Wow.
There'll be some crazy cars out
just
there.
Just did a mad burnout at the front. Magville, let's go.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah, he seemed down to earth, but
totally. It was good that he got him, like amazing, and really, he asked good questions and got good answers. Like, there was some cool stuff in there.
I think Ian Michener and Patrick O'Dell are my two favourite journalists. Like, even outside of skateboarding, I think if they were a journalist anywhere else, they'd be amazing.
Yeah, well, the new applicated stuff that's coming out again now is amazing.
Do you like it?
Yeah. I mean, I watched that new...
It's a little bit more polished than the old ones.
Yeah, for sure. But I don't mind that. But also, I don't know. The new one with Anthony Van England's amazing.
Yeah.
And his story's so fucking awesome.
Dude.
I mean, I knew he was rock and roll, but I didn't know he was that rock and roll.
Have you seen it, Chris?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Did you know about his struggles with addiction?
Yeah, I think I've read or maybe seen something about it in the past. Yeah.
I didn't realise how deep it was.
No, me neither.
I thought he was just like, had the
I just thought it was his style. I knew he must have partied because of dildos and, it was the thing, but I didn't know it was like he was that gnarly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love Jason Dill.
Oh, same, yeah.
When I watched that, I was like, sorry, dude looks older.
Yeah, but that's all right. That's where I feel like he's just found himself into his proper crazy art vibe thing now. He doesn't give a fuck.
He really doesn't.
He never has he?
Nah. Do you reckon they're just like completely balling from like FA and hockey?
Has to be.
They must be.
Like loaded, you mean?
Yeah, like
hell yeah.
balling like.
Yeah, has to be. FA must be killing it. The links with Supreme and everything. Like,
They're
you
big.
go to New York and you see the shops. There's lines like out the fucking.
I know.
It's crazy. They'll just do one drop of some product and.
But why do some like brands pop off and others don't? Like, does it purely come down to the quality of the team? Do you think that is the most important thing for a pop off?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, in a way.
It's videos as well. Like, I think just whatever the latest video is. Like, I just try and think back to when I was a kid, like that public domain video, right? That was just, I don't know, time goes quicker, I guess, when you're older, but when you're a kid, you're sort of in that moment. And it's like whatever's stoking you out at that time is like what you identify with. So I think videos play a big part. I don't know so much now, though, because there's so much content that I don't know if kids today have the same experience we did, like in the late 80s and 90s.
Yeah, it's different for sure. The content's so much more accessible. Like, I
There's
remember
so
getting
much
video.
of it.
Yeah.
So you think it's like this element of exclusivity gives it that kind of like more desirable feel for customers?
I think so.
Because they kind of did they tried to make it a little bit exclusive, hey? I mean, Supreme was definitely like that, yeah.
For sure, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that works too, but it works outside of the skateboard world. Like, they're clearly selling to not just skateboarders. I mean, that's fine. Like,
Yeah.
like, good on them for me. If that's where you're going to make money. But the thing is, it's like a legit skate brand. It's not like it's someone just come in to sell to skaters from the outside.
Yeah, it's
They've
cool.
just found a bigger audience. But FA's been around forever. Like, I remember when Dion Kovac had his shop in Sydney in 2001 or 2, and they had FA T-shirts. It was a T-shirt brand for a while.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
And it was just like he was just doing every, and it was like exclusive stuff then as well. But I'm sure he didn't make any money. It was just like a thing, and he's just kept it going. And then I guess then they blew it up when, whatever, 10 years ago, whenever it started proper.
Wow, it's crazy. I didn't realize that. I just thought it was like those guys got together and said, let's do this and kill it because, you know, they're some of the most respected skateboarders of all time, and that's how it goes. But I want to get back to you, Chris, in terms of your life journey. Let's go some more chronology here.
Yeah.
So after high school, what'd you do?
I did year 12 again. So
What?
I got to the end of the summer holidays, and I think this was just after my parents split up, so I was a bit lost. And it was the day before you had to enroll for the next year, and I just went, I'm just going back to school. I don't know anything else. So, yeah, went to, my son calls it, you did the year 13. He always gives me a hard time about it. But I went back, did HSC again, didn't really try,
Like
got
at
marginally
school?
better.
Or TAFE?
No, at school. I just went back to school. Yeah.
Dude,
Yeah.
like a toolie.
But how old are you? What year was that? What year did you graduate? You're older than me?
92, and then I did 93
Okay,
as well.
you're older than me. 2 years older than me.
Yeah.
So you're 50 yet?
I'm 50 in December.
Nice.
How does that feel saying that?
It's weird. Like, I don't know. I think people are living longer now. Because I remember when I was young and I saw my English grandparents when they were like 60 and 61, and they looked really old. But maybe it's just a perspective.
Yeah, so you did year 13.
I did year 13, and then I went to TAFE after that to do like computer programming, because I've always been good with computers. But then I kind of dropped out of that, and then I ended up moving to Sydney, and I got a job at a lift company talking to people trapped in lifts. So I'd be the voice on the other end when you got stuck in the lift. What? And I did that for 2 years. It was intense because you'd be answering phones, right, talking to people that were either trapped in lifts or disgruntled lift owners. And then you'd be ringing technicians who don't really want to do the work, and you got to motivate them to go and get the person out or fix the lift. So it was like this fully intense job, but I did that for 2 years.
What's the training for that? Like, do they give you some?
No.
No psychological.
They just tell you how to work the phones.
Wow.
Pretty much.
shit.
Yeah. And like I had some pretty, like sometimes when there was a change of shift in the afternoons, like in the city, because they'd finish at 4, and then you'd have one guy that just looked after the whole city from 4 till 6. But that's when everyone was leaving work. So you'd have 3 people trapped in the city, and one guy, and you're like, yeah, I've got 3 PILs, which is person in lift. That was like the terminology. I've got 3 PILs.
I got
and,
a PIL here.
Yeah. And they'd be like, oh, yeah. Like, and some of them had really like cranky personalities. So you just have to learn how to deal with different personalities. But I think I learned so much in that job in 2 years. And
In terms of what? Like communicating?
Communicating, dealing with difficult personalities, staying calm.
Problem solving?
Problem solving, yeah. Just multitasking and
Crazy.
just dealing with stress.
That's the craziest job. I wouldn't even know that existed.
Yeah. I was telling someone this story the other day. There was someone at Randwick Hospital. This woman rang me and she'd pressed the button, but the button goes through to their security centre, so it didn't come straight to me. And she rang on her mobile to the call center where I was, and she was stressing out, and she was quite heavily pregnant. And I told her the process of what was going on. I said, we've received the call from security and there's someone on the way. And she just started losing it. And I just went, I've got to use some tough love. And I was pretty strict with her, and I was like, look, you need to do what's best for your baby now, and you need to just calm down, take some breaths. And after it, I was a bit worried because maybe I was a bit like came on too strong.
That sounds pretty nice to me.
And anyway, she wrote a letter to my company and they gave it to me, and she was like thanking us and just saying how good a job I did, and like, yeah, so it was kind of nice.
You'd be perfect. You'd be perfect at that.
You're a pretty calm guy, though, from what I know of you. Like,
yeah,
generally.
I think I'm the type of guy that's really calm, but then if I lose it, it's like, you know, nuclear. So, which isn't very often. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Because I've not now, but maybe in the past, I'll bottle stuff up, you know.
All right. So nothing in particular triggers you. It's just holding it all in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you manage that now?
Now it's just like expressing how I feel and trying to be better at communicating, that sort of thing.
Who to? Like your partner, friends, colleagues?
Yeah. Partner, family, friends. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Fuck, that's the craziest job description I've ever. I can't believe it.
It was intense. Yeah. Yeah. And then I end up getting a resentment over this new call center manager there, and instead of just saying I quit and get another job, I said, I'm going to move to London. So I kind of moved to London because I had a resentment with someone in my job.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, because I didn't really know how to just say I didn't want to work there anymore. And then I ended up going to London and just, yeah.
Did you still have British passport and stuff? Like, have you always had that? Yeah.
I've actually got 3 citizenships. So,
yeah, right.
Australian, British and Irish through my grandmother.
Irish?
Yeah.
Dude,
So
you're
pretty
so
lucky.
interesting. I wonder if that job still exists.
I think it does. It would have to. Yeah, you can't use AI for that.
What's the typical call? Like, so the security will put you through to the person. Like, hey, I got.
No, most of the time you press the button in the lift and it goes straight through to the call center where I worked. A lot of the time it's kids mucking around, or it's someone that's just stuck momentarily, and then the lift sort of resets and it's okay. But then you get the worst ones were elderly females that couldn't speak English, because they would totally lose it.
Right.
So that was sometimes hard because you need to ask them where they were. Yeah, but maybe now they've got technology that'll tell you where they are.
Oh, yeah, so which lift they're in, like what building. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's another story. It's pretty intense. So if you drop your keys down the lift shaft, you have to pay like $400 or something to get them out. And then in Surrey Hills, like a cleaner had dropped their keys down there and they didn't want to pay it. So they got one of the other cleaners to stop the lift, and they climbed down the lift shaft. And then someone must have called the lift somewhere else and they got crushed between the 2 lifts and died. So it's a pretty gnarly story. But what sort of freaked me out was when the lift technician said, yeah, when we got there, the police were using the body bag as a doorstop. To keep the door open for the motor room.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? I was just like, but, you know, I don't know. That's intense.
Fuck. So gnarly, dude.
Yeah. It was a pretty interesting job, but it was pretty stressful. And I was just like, yeah, going out at night and then doing the job, you know. So
what do you mean you're going, like, so were you offsetting the because it sounds stressful?
Yeah, I was drinking a lot.
Yeah, right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think it drove the drinking a little bit because it was so...
Yeah, I think so.
We can imagine that.
Yeah. And I think there was one time where I worked 26 days in a row because they started to open the course on the weekends instead of using like a pager service. And that was like, pretty intense.
So was it like servicing like every lift in Sydney?
Yeah, in Sydney for that particular company. Yeah.
And you were the one call operator?
No, there was like 2 or 3 of us during the day. And then on the weekends, there was just one person.
So people are just getting stuck in lifts like every day?
Yeah, like there's shopping, all the Westfield shopping centres, there's escalators that break down and there's lifts in private homes.
Do people ever ring you on the escalator going, I'm stuck on the escalator? just fucking walk up it.
No. But I remember there were some people that lived in the Toaster, the Benelong apartments near the Opera House, and they were going to one of the opening ceremonies of the Olympics and they were stuck in the lift and they were just like ripping into me saying, this is the second time. But then you talk to like...
I missed the ceremony.
I think Gough Whitlam's wife. Like there was people who have lifts in their homes like in Darling Point and Point Piper and stuff like that. That was pretty interesting.
They're stuck.
And then some of the technicians went to Bob Hawke's house and there was like 3 of them and he's like saying to his wife, hey, love, get him some beers.
Dude, here's a story about Bob Hawke. I used to live in Rose Bay on O'Sullivan Road. I remember once I was like skating on the footpath out of my street and there was like an old dude and a chick walking towards me. Yeah. And I'm skating and like I didn't want to get off my skateboard and they didn't want to walk onto the grass. Yeah. So I just committed and just kept going. And as I got closer and closer, they stepped onto the grass and I skate past and it's Bob Hawke and his girlfriend Blanche. Was it remember he had the divorce with Hazel. Yeah. I was like, no way. I just put it was Bob Hawke. I just like made him walk onto the grass.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Crazy, dude.
Yeah.
Wow. That's so unique. So after that job and where'd you go from there? Like, did you go to university?
No. I went to uni later, like after I was 40 actually and did some study there. But after that I stopped doing Amnesia and moved to London and just got an admin sort of job and I was just like partying and stuff over there. But then my brother got cancer in 2000. That's when I was working at the lift company. But it was in his knee and he had the choice of getting his leg amputated or getting his kneecap removed and getting a titanium kneecap. And he went through all that and then everything was good. And then that's when I moved to London and but then over those 2 years it sort of spread to his heart, to his lungs, sorry. And that's when it sort of progressed. And then I moved back after that. But yeah, London was a bit of a, I wasn't doing anything career-wise really. It was just more, like a lot of Australians do, go to London for a couple of years and just party.
Yeah, I got sucked into that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, did you like it?
Yeah, I did, but it's a bit soul destroying. Like I like England. Like I've got a lot of good memories there from childhood. But I think if I had my time back, I would have travelled more in Europe and not partied as much. I would have tried to make the most of being in that location instead of just hanging out with other Australians getting drunk.
That's exactly what I did. Yeah. And I didn't travel hardly at all because I had no money because I kept spending it at the bar.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Yeah. Ridiculous. Yeah, man. Then you're back in Australia and like back in Newcastle then or Sydney?
Back in Sydney. Then my brother passed away and that's when I sort of started Amnesia back up again. I think that's when
94?
Sorry?
Was that around, 94? No.
No, this was
2000.
My brother died.
Sorry,
2005. Yeah. And then, that's probably when I reached out to
we would have been talking, yeah.
And then Kerry was actually doing Omni again, but I think he started a factory in China and then he did our first batch of boards, which Han-Mi did one graphic and you did one. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Like, who are some standout? Well, no, actually, what are some standout graphics for you over the years that you feel are iconic for the brand?
Well, I think the early ones in the 90s, like David Altnew did one that was this angel board for Ben, which like sold like hotcakes. Like I remember I was working at Central Station Records in Newcastle, and they asked me to start a skate shop there. And then that's when I was doing like all the Omni boards. And I remember I dropped some boards off there, and then I came back later, and the guys who owned it were Greek, didn't know anything about. They were DJs. They didn't know anything about skating. I had to teach them how to grip a board and stuff like that. And I came back one day, and Christo goes, "Hey, Chris, I just sold 7 Ben Cox boards today." And I was like, "What?
No way!"
Yeah. So those early graphics. I think are iconic. And then later on, you know, the stuff we've done with Marty Paptis, I always liked Steve's collage graphics as well. So yeah, there's been some good ones over the years. I've kept most of them except for the 90s. Like I've got everything from 2005 onwards, but yeah, I wish I had those 90s ones.
Yeah, I wish I kept all my I didn't keep any of my Omniboards really either. It's like stupid all the time. Yeah.
You don't think back then. You're not thinking about the future. You're in the.
Who did the logo? Was it Wade?
No, it wasn't Wade. So we actually just lifted that from this old war propaganda book from Europe. Like it had a whole heap of stuff from Europe, like French graphics, and I don't know what that logo started out as, but we just sort of took it on as our own, and then there's been different versions done over the years. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Did you guys do like Amnesia tours?
No, but I guess we did our own sort of thing. I think me and Darren Caney and Peter Schiffman drove up to Brisbane in my dad's car once and just went up there to hang out with Shane Wallace and that sort of thing. And then there was a tour we did with Gordo, Peanut, Darren, a few other guys, Kent Lunny,
I remember.
in 97. And we just named it the 10 Cent Tour because we had no accommodation. And we were just like driving in a van and then, you know, drinking ourselves to sleep wherever we were. I think we slept in a private school.
What? Just like sleeping
one night.
bags and that's it?
No, we didn't have sleeping bags. We had nothing.
For how long?
I think, I know, it's
week?
probably like 4 or 5 days. We went up to Nexus for that comp and saw like, I remember being at Nexus and Jeff Rowley rocked up and just destroyed that place.
So
Those Nexus comps were awesome.
Yeah.
yeah, because that park was just sick.
Everyone went up for it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it had like the wedge to wedge, and there wasn't a lot of those around. It was done really well, and
Yeah.
One year the DC Super Tour was there. Remember? It was like all the DC tour.
Yeah.
was-
there was.
that was
I think
so
there was
rad.
2 tours that were
Yeah.
clashing at the same time, so
they
got to
were
see a
in
lot
jerseys.
of people.
Yeah, they had the full. That
Had
was
the
that. They had the Super Tour shirts or whatever it was. Yeah, so sick.
like a sports jersey.
Yeah, that was the sickest time.
That
That
was
year.
like Rick Howard,
Oh, it was
Jason
all
Maxwell,
Scott Johnson,
Scott Johnson.
Moses Ikonen,
Yeah.
Rudy Johnson, all like the full DC team. Colin McKay,
Yeah. Are you stoked you're related to Scott Johnson? Like his
yeah,
twin brother?
brothers. Yeah.
Did you ever get that?
Oh, all the time. I mean, fuck.
Just a whole
he was one of my
vibe.
favorite skaters. Like,
Dude.
obviously,
You're just known for being really clean and like.
yeah. But it was like a way. You know, everyone emulates the skater that they
Yeah.
can, and I mean, he just did look like me, obviously.
Yeah.
But I was like, yeah, classic.
But
it
was
didn't
he-
take. It wasn't that hard to like. You know, when you see people who copied Chad Musker or something, it's like
Yeah.
an obvious you have to change your whole thing. I didn't really have to change much of my.
So he was one of your favorite skaters.
Oh,
back
for sure,
then?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
So funny. Who would you rate as some of your favourite skaters of all time?
Like Australian or just
Anywhere.
Like I got to say that just the Amnesia guys, right? I'm kind of biased though, right?
You are biased.
But like Ben Cox, like he was just a contrarian and didn't really want to be in the spotlight. So he became like it became like this mystical folklore.
Oh, he is. He's an enigma, dude. He's a mystical folklore character of
Even
Australian
now.
skateboarding.
Yeah.
Like one of the best skateboarders our country's ever produced, but just came and disappeared when he wanted to. I mean, obviously, I know he went in some dark times with drugs, but even when he was at his peak, he'd just appear, and you'd be like, "What? Ben Cox is here," and he'd just rip.
Yeah.
Like the Tuggerah skate park. Remember, he'd just come there and just do this craziest shit, and you're like, and then he'd be gone again.
Yeah.
And I'm
Like I remember O'Mealy came up to Newcastle once and he goes, "Oh, do you reckon Ben will want to come skate the marble rail at Civic?" And I went to Ben and Ben goes, "No, I've got a headache," and like went home. Like he just wasn't into the whole fame of everything, which he was just in the moment, and it's kind of like an artist in a way on his board.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Wow. It's funny you use those words to describe him. Like, what was it, mystical?
Yeah, he was like,
Enigma.
you'd go to places, obviously this is before the internet, and like people would like talk about Ben Cox. Yeah. Have you heard about Ben Cox? But yeah, like I'm a big fan of Caney. Like Caney and Shane Wallace, they were on the original team, and they're just
who are both still ripping.
oh,
Yeah, they're back on it. Like,
it's crazy.
crazy.
Like who would have thought at this age? Like the stuff they're doing, it's crazy.
Yeah, Shane's insane again. Yeah.
Shane's just like a new board sponsor.
He does, right? He's got a board. Hasn't he got a pro
I
model?
think they actually did. Yeah, they might have given him a pro model.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Did Shane ever ride for you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he rang me. Like, I think I got a message, call Shane Wallace. I just got this memory of ringing him from a payphone in Sydney. I don't know, before mobile phones. He was like, hey, yeah, like, I really like Ben and Darren, so, like, can I get on the team? I was like, yeah. And I remember I was riding my board through Hyde Park in Sydney at night, and Sid Tavey come up to me on his board, and he put his arm around me and goes, oh, Shane's on the team. And they're like so stoked. And I was like, yeah. I was like a little kid.
It's so sick.
There was a few of those dudes back in the day that just feel like they came out of nowhere. Like Shane, I remember when he came to Sydney and just, I was just like, holy, he could pop his board. Like he could do backside kickflips over a wall, you know what I mean? Or over shit. And we were all still trying to get our boards up.
Yeah, didn't he pop shove it into the pit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He just came from, seemed like nowhere, and it was just like, oh, okay, we're not that as good as we thought we were.
Yeah.
And like the Melbourne crew and Darren, man, I remember Darren back in the day. He was like so gnarly. I was kind of scared of him. He was
really? Why?
Yeah. Well, the Manly crew always seemed a bit gnarly.
Really?
Yeah, but I mean, he's such a nice dude, and I know him now. But
Yeah.
I remember that crew being a bit like, oh shit, they're so gnarly, the Manly dudes.
That's interesting. Yeah. I guess, and then you had the Borcos as well. Like, I didn't know Darren, but Gordo let me sit in on the editing of Plebs at Newcastle Uni, and he had all the Darren footage, and I was like, just loved his character and his style and his skating. Mm-hmm. So I sort of wanted to put him on Amnesia even before I met him, and like, and then I remember I copped heaps of shit from the Newcastle crew for sponsoring a Sydney skater. Like I had people come up to me and go, why are you sponsoring this Sydney cunt? Like fully intense, right? And then, but then Darren came up to Newcastle and stayed for a while. Like he had this big bag of clothes and like cans of food and stuff. And like once they got to know him, he was just like, you know.
He loves Newcastle.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, it's for good reason.
Yeah.
Wow. I just wanted to tap into that owning a skate company back then that was doing okay for a while. Were you getting like sponsor me tapes of kids and stuff? You were? Yeah. Was it sick?
Yeah, and then on Instagram later on, you know.
Oh, you still get even on even more recent times.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I remember, what about those letters you showed me of kids sending you letters of like, send me some stickers?
I've still got them all, yeah. So I kept all the CLS ones just because they're
crazy.
so rad. I've got them here in the
Didn't you get
folder.
a letter of a kid like requesting sponsorship, even though there's no like evidence?
Oh, for sure, yeah. And it's so funny because they write in and you
like,
can tell they don't really know what your company is. They're just like 12-year-old kids. They're just like...
It's just a numbers game sometimes.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and they'll send you a video.
They probably send it to all the ads in the mag. Like,
yeah. But some advice, if anyone's listening, like, if you're going to send a sponsor me tape, like buy that product and have it in the video. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well,
like,
I've got a letter where a kid was like, oh, I've got the CLS hat and it's so rad. And I was like, we never made hats. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just hustling.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Do you consider yourself a hustler?
Not really, no.
Even as a company owner?
Not really. Like, I'm probably not...
Because I don't think hustling's bad. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think there's always a bit of a hustle to everything. If you want things to happen, you got to hustle.
Yeah, I think in the sense of like trying to work out how to get things done, I think I am in that way, like reaching out to Kerry, you know, working out. I think with a skateboard company, there's so many different moving parts, you know. So just trying to work things out, probably from that sense, yeah.
So how are we going to celebrate the 30 years?
Yeah, I don't know. Steve and I were chatting, so I was like, got all those boards. So it'd be great to put on some event, maybe in Newcastle. So if anyone's got a space, like reach out.
Dude, I've got a 2-bedroom unit.
Sounds novel. Yeah. But
It'd be good to do a new year for sure.
Oh, you'd have to
bring those artworks up too and do it like a full event.
Do it at the museum, actually.
Really?
Yeah, I know Jim Turvey did a photo exhibition at the museum, and they're actually really skate friendly. The museum, the people that work there, they actually advocated for the legalization of skateboarding at Civic Park because it's outside the museum. Did you know that?
Yeah, I heard that in Jim's interview, and
they're super supportive.
Yeah, like I went up to see that exhibition because there was a lot of the Amnesia stuff in there, and it was blew me away because you forget about all the different magazine articles and everything, and to see it in that, venue where back then there's no way we would be in like a museum or anything like that. So it was kind of cool.
So sick, man.
And it validated it,
Yeah, you get the original video on a screen or something at an event. It'd be sick.
That'd be cool. And just like old people coming through like you've known for years. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Where'd you meet your wife?
At the postcard company, yeah.
No shit.
Yeah.
So that was around what,
2005, yeah.
Was she a designer?
No, she studied film out at Long Beach in the US. Like she's from Balcombe Hills. So she's a Vorco. No way. And she studied film there, and then she came back to Australia and got that receptionist job, and that's where we met. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you were like the graphic designer and...
No, I was like the distribution. Like I did all the operational stuff, which is kind of what I've always been good at, like operations, making things happen behind the scenes.
It's like a workplace romance.
Yeah, it was. But I think over 50% of people meet their partners at work, apparently. So it kind of makes sense. It's where you spend most of your time.
It's where you spend 90% of your time.
Yeah.
That hurts, actually, saying that.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah. I was talking to Emily today at the skate park, actually. He's like, "Oh, you still teaching?" I was like, "Yeah, still teaching." And he's like, 5 days a week? I'm like, "Yeah, 5 days a week." And it's just like, yeah, when you think about it, do you really like where you're going every day of your life? It's a tricky one. And when you have kids, it becomes more pronounced in my mind because I now see it as time away from my kids. Yeah. So it's hard to find that balance.
It is, yeah.
Do you feel like you found it to some degree?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty lucky in terms of my day job. I really love it. It's I get to learn a lot. I think the thing with me, if I was doing a job where you're just doing a repetitive thing, I wouldn't enjoy it. But if I need to learn something, and some of that comes down to just some sort of self-motivation as well. Like I think if you're always keen to learn, then you're going to make the job better in a sense. If that makes sense.
Does make sense. Yeah. How's fatherhood changed you?
It's definitely maybe less selfish. Yeah. And try and be a good listener. Like I just noticed lately, like put my phone down and just be present for my kids. My daughter's 13 now and it's just been a blur. It's just gone really quick. My son's turning 10 next month. So it's like, how can I be there for them? And sometimes I realize I'm not even listening to what they're saying. And they're telling me something that's really interesting to them, but it's not that interesting to me. But if I can make it interesting if I think about, from that context, like how would I want my parents to behave around me? Maybe that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Like as they embark on their teen years, do you feel like you're drawing closer to them, or do you feel like do you get that feeling of like I'm losing my kids now?
A little bit, because they're forming their own identity, but I think that's just a natural cycle of growing up. You need to separate from the parents a bit, but I feel like I've got a good relationship with them where they can come to me and like if they've got any challenges, like I always try and tell them where I've made mistakes in life. Like my son thinks I'm a criminal because, when I was 6, I set my parents' house on fire. When I was 16, I stole my parents' van and rode off the van and threw my neighbour's fences in Stockton.
Were you drunk?
No. I was on my L's and I had driven the van around the night before with my brother, and it was just around the block and down the back lane and around again. And I remember the video days that I just got a copy of Video Days and I was doing the VCR to VCR, the Video Days. So it was like 91, bootleg. I think. And
bootleg.
Yeah, and my best friend Kelvin came over and I made the mistake of telling him, we drove the car around the block the night before. And he kept going, "Come on, let's do it." And I'm like, no. And then he kept pestering me. I go, "Okay." And I just think because of that, I wasn't in the right mindset. Anyway, we pushed the car down the street, jumped in. My brother and Kelvin were in the back. No, Kelvin was in the front. And then I went round the block and I was okay. But when I went round the back lane, instead of putting my foot on the brake, I put it right on the accelerator, right down in second gear. And it went through two of my neighbour's fences on one side. And then I overcorrected, went into another fence. And then my brother got out of the car and goes, get out of here. And I drove it and the car broke down right out the back of my house. And I went in the house and I told my mum, hey, Mum, I've scratched the car. She's like, what? She was like reading a book. And my dad was down at the RSL, having some beers and something. And then she goes, go get your dad. And then my mum was saying to the cops, arrest him. And then I think...
What, to teach you a lesson?
Yeah, totally. Like, I don't know, if one of my kids did that, I'd be flipping out. And then when the cops came and then they ended up sending me a fine for neg driving and driving without a licensed driver, the car was totaled and had just been resprayed. And then the insurance company thought my dad was setting me up because he'd been down the RSL drinking. So there was this full investigation and they were trying not to pay him the insurance money, but it came through. So again, I try and tell my kids like the whole truth where I can, because I think like I've made a lot of shitty mistakes in life and try and just be honest with them.
That's cool. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Because you could just not tell them.
Yeah.
I think, personally, like something I've been thinking about a lot lately in terms of like being honest with my kids, but it's like a tough one because it's like, how do you know they're ready for that truth?
Yeah.
But in my opinion, if they ask the question, I'm going to try and give them the most real answer as possible that they will understand.
Yeah.
I don't know, because they're going to work it out eventually.
Yeah.
So, and I feel like it's just part of their journey of truth seeking. Like I think everyone is seeking some sort of truth, and it starts so young.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like it's important to me because with my son, because my dad is now with very heavy dementia and Alzheimer's and can't tell me any of the story, like a lot of his stories anymore. And I'm at a point where there's a lot of stories. I know a lot about him and I talk to his sisters, my aunties and stuff, and they tell me stuff. There's a lot of stuff I don't know about my dad. And now I can't get it out of him. Yeah. But so I'm thinking about my kid and I'm like, I want him to know, like, I know the right time is the right time to tell stories like that. He's only 5, so I'm going to wait. But also when he asks me stuff, or if he wants to know about me, I'll make sure he does know. Yeah.
Yeah, I always thought there should be like a business that does documentaries on people for their kids. Like that'd be great, right? Like, like similar to this, right? Like a podcast, but it's more, like telling stories and stuff. I always think about my dad's getting old as well, and like he always tells me rad stories about the past, growing up in Malaysia and fights he got into and having a pet monkey and shit like that. That's pretty rad.
It's classic. I'm like, are your kids like curious about you? Like you said, they think you're a criminal because you did that to your car. Because like I'll tell you, my kids have become curious about my person, like my character.
Yeah.
So my son said to me, "Oh, have you ever stolen anything, Dad?" I was like, well, and it was true. Like when I was about his age, I think, maybe a bit older, I stole $5 out of my mum's purse. And at the time that was like that was a lot of money. It was like stealing like a 20 or a 50 now, you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
And it was just like such a big deal. And she worked it out and I got in trouble and then I owned up to it, and I tell him that story and he loves it. But now every time like he gets in trouble, he's like, "Dad, but you stole $5 once off your mum."
Yeah, they don't forget it, right?
No, they do. Like, but you can see his little brain like working it out. Like, okay, that's Dad. Dad's made the same mistakes as me. Like, it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think being honest with them and also apologising when you've made a mistake. Like sometimes if I've lost my temper, if I'm tired, and that's happened, many times as it does being a parent, when I'm in the wrong, just saying, "Hey, look, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that." Because I think that's happened to me when I was growing up, but there was no explanation. And sometimes you internalise that, right, growing up. Especially when my parents were going through their tough patch. I blamed myself a lot for what was going on and felt like it was my responsibility to fix things. And even in adult life, like being the eldest son, I was sort of the go-between because they didn't talk to each other. So that was like I had to grow up maybe a bit more quickly in that sense than I should have, when they should have been sort of looking out for me. But, they did the best they could at the time with what they had. Yeah.
Was the no talking like related to just pure bitterness from the divorce?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. And it went on for 10 years.
Yeah. I think it's more on my mum's side. So, like, you never know the whole story of what's happened. My dad's pretty laid back and But, you know, I talk to both of them still.
But you noticed it as a kid, like you noticed that.
Yeah, since they divorced, they just didn't. They'd just communicate through me. So, I think recently, like, we didn't have my brother's ashes for a long time because just before he died, he married his like high school sweetheart, and she had them for a long time. And then recently, she had a kid, and then she realized, I think, you know, it was never a big deal to me about his ashes because I'm like, he's like with me in spirit. But for my mum and sister, it was like a big deal, and they used to angst over it. And then I think recently we got the ashes back, and they're up at Fern Bay. And my mum and dad came to that, and then my mum actually came back to my dad's house for like lunch. Like, it was awesome.
How'd that feel? That
was awesome, man.
That's what I was leading to. I was like, what's the resolution?
Oh, it was great. They chatted, and it's like, I think, you know, having to bury a son is not like the easiest thing, right? Obviously, they've had their challenges, but that was, it was great. There's a photo of me and them that we took at that lunch, and like I look so happy, like I look like a little kid, you know.
What, they were talking?
Yeah, it was just you don't realize like how much it impacts you until you get it back, sort of thing. So, you know, so I'm trying to learn from my family and try and, you know, break the chain some way. But, you know, I'm not perfect. You know, I'm going to make mistakes as well. Yeah.
Wow, man. It's really interesting that you bring that up. It's cool. Thanks for sharing it.
Yeah,
it's
no
kind
worries.
of delicate, but I think a lot of people probably need to hear it, you know, so myself included.
Yeah.
Because what we're talking about, that whole no talking thing was a big theme in my dad's side of the family.
Yeah.
Just like resentment would pop up between them, and then just, we don't talk now. And that went for years. Like my dad didn't talk to his brother for 30 years.
That's crazy.
Until his deathbed. You know, that's a lot of time holding resentment and bitterness. And it does, like, I think it polluted his life. It was like toxic, you know.
Yeah.
So,
That's crazy. 30 years is a long time.
It is. It's kind of ridiculous when you consider how short our existence is on this planet. But yeah, we just don't want to forgive one another.
Yeah.
You know, and I think fundamentally that notion of resentment infiltrates so much of our world, including world wars. It really is at the core of what's happening throughout our world, especially more recent times with some of the, you know, atrocities occurring. It comes down to just people holding on to long-term resentment.
Yeah.
So, anyway, something that just came to my mind. So, anyway, shit got deep.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I don't know, man. How you feeling? You want to keep talking, or you had enough?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. This has been good.
Is there anything we've forgotten, Steve? I hate that.
I don't know. We've covered most of definitely the skate history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you've got a set of boards on the way, right? We did the graphics last year when I was still in Mexico. We finished those off, right?
Yeah.
And then they're on the way.
They're on a ship from San Diego, landing in early August. So, yeah.
People can get them on the Amnesia website.
Yeah, be able to get them on there or at Kingpin.
Yes.
Oh, Kingpin's on the support, yeah.
Yeah.
So, Dave Spin.
Dave Bodner, who's kind of like the vert version of Ben Cox. The mystical
Spin's
Dave Bodner.
definitely mystical. Definitely one of the best vert skaters Australia's ever produced, and just
he's a legend. He's become one of my best friends, and just to tell you how I met him, it's just a funny story. So I was, when Ben Gauci was on Amnesia for a while, like in the late 2000s, like the aughts, and so I was hanging out with him a bit, and Guy Miller, because Guy was taking photos and stuff back then. And then I rang Guy Miller one weekend and said, hey, you want to go out skating? He goes, no, I'm going out to Penrith to set up the shop in Kingpin. And I was like, oh, do you need any help? And he goes, yeah, come with me. So I drove out, and Spin was there, and he introduced me, and I was fanning out. Like I couldn't, like, it's like I couldn't talk, you know, like I was fanning out because I'd heard so much about Spin, like from Ben Cox, because he lived in Melbourne. Spin was down there, and they used to street skate together. But it was similar to Ben, where you just hear these like stories, and he didn't have that much coverage. And like I was helping paint the shop, I was painting the ceilings and stuff, and like we've just become really good mates. And he's a bit of a contrarian, like Ben Cox as well, but he tells you what's on his mind, which is really kind of refreshing, even if you don't see eye to eye. So yeah, he's been a big supporter, and yeah, just a good mate.
He's such a good skateboarder.
Yeah,
It's so natural.
like some of the stuff he
So
did on
smooth.
Monster, like even probably 10 years ago, he was just. I think someone compared him to Colin McKay recently, maybe on this
Really?
podcast. I was like, yeah.
He was so
I
smooth.
reckon for sure.
It was like
Yeah.
he was like a bit like Max Schaff and a few guys, where it was like they were kind of street skaters on vert. Like
Yeah.
he had style, and it
Yeah.
looked like a street skater.
Yeah.
And he popped his tricks. So like when he didn't just like air out, he like kind of ollied.
Yeah.
And but yeah, he stood out for sure.
for sure.
I think there was like a possibility of him getting on Flip or something at one point, but then he wanted to move back to Australia and didn't really pursue it. So
Man, he's the man for
Yeah,
sure.
he's such a funny dude too. So raw. Like,
got a dark sense of humor,
Definitely.
like Ben as well.
Yeah.
Like I think sometimes people like that can get misunderstood, but I don't know. That's my kind of humor.
Yeah, his name comes up a lot, and it's been coming up a lot lately.
Yeah.
And Ty Coling hit him up to be on the podcast. I think Guy Miller even hit him up once as well.
Yeah.
He's just like, no fuck. Like apparently it's just like no fucking way.
yeah.
Because I think he said something to Ty like, I'd probably get in too much trouble because I talk too much shit about people.
Yeah. He would.
He would for sure.
Something along those lines. And
Yeah.
I guess he's sensible enough to realise that he.
He's got some funny stories.
Yeah, but anyway. Yeah. Cool, Chris, man. It's been so nice, bro. And you're an amazing human, and I am so glad to be connected. And like I was saying to you earlier, it's just a bit of a trip to see you because I don't think I've seen you in I don't know how long, but I was with Peanut, and Peanut showed me a photo of you and I
Yeah.
out drinking, probably on that 10-cent tour. And
Yeah.
we would just it was a group of us, and it just turned out you and I just
That's
get a photo
crazy.
together, and that was probably the only time we'd ever hung out.
Like 26 years ago.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah,
So
That's
yeah,
crazy.
it's so
Well, thanks for
nice.
having me. Really enjoyed it.
Absolutely, man. And thanks, Steve.
No worries. Yeah, it was a good little session earlier too.
Yeah.
Dude,
Good to
yes.
get a rolling.
Steve's
And
ripping.
Amelie showed up out of nowhere. It was
Yeah,
cool.
it was nice to see him.
Yeah.
Steve's in training, dude.
I'm in training. I've got to go. Yeah, I've got to go skate with Davo in a couple of
Yeah.
weeks. So
Oh,
and he's
yeah.
been ripping, same as Darren and those dudes. So I'm like, I've got to at least have some stuff ready.
Dude, I couldn't believe when you got that line first shot today. Just really clean, easy. I was like, wow, Steve, he's been training. I'm jealous. All right. Mr. Chris Yeoh.